The moderators of NixOS, the whole moderation team, or at least most of it, has mass resigned in protest. Just they've thrown out a huff and declared, quote, "We resign effective immediately," in protest of the steering committee's ongoing pattern of attempting to interfere with moderation team operations. This is very, very entertaining. This is just kind of happening over the last couple of hours. I'm going to catch everyone up to speed because it's ridiculous. Let me read some of what I posted over on X because it sums things up nicely because my words are beautiful. The majority of the NixOS moderation team, 5 of 7 of them, they have 7 people on the team, has just mass resigned and are threatening to leave the project entirely if their demands are not met. Now, this appears to be in response to the NixOS Steering Committee, which is the elected governing body of NixOS. It's effectively their board of directors, right? They call it the Steering Committee. This is in response to the Steering Committee's attempts to, quote, "make moderation fair and respectable and address perceptions of political bias in NixOS moderation." That's right. The moderators of NixOS are so upset about a possible attempt to address perceptions of political bias in NixOS. I wonder how they could have gotten those perceptions, that they're just quitting in a huff over it. So the NixOS moderation team came to public attention last year when they conducted what they called, their word, a purge, a mass purge of conservatives and other non-leftist activists from the project. Anyone who was not a leftist activist was declared a Nazi, which they used over and over and over again. Sometimes they used the word fascist, but mostly they used the word Nazi to refer to anyone who was a centrist, a conservative, a libertarian, or even a left-leaning person who wasn't a leftist extremist, political activist, right? Anyone that wasn't part of their team was a Nazi, and they purged them, and they were gleeful about it, right? We covered this at the Lunduke Journal when it was happening. Now, again, I wonder how people could have gotten the impression that NixOS Moderation Team was political in some way. How crazy. The resigned NixOS Moderation Team members are demanding that the entire NixOS elected steering committee resign immediately, that new elections be held, and that the NixOS Constitution, because they have a constitution, be modified to make the elected steering committee accountable to the non-elected moderation team. You got that? The moderation team is not elected by anyone. More than that in a minute, because it's weird. The steering committee is elected by the team, right? So all the contributors to NixOS. The moderation team is demanding that they be able to control the elected steering committee, or they're just going to walk away. Wild. Here's some of it here. Quote, this is from a statement from members of the moderation team, from Aryan VP, I guess is his username here. "This is not a statement we enjoy making." Come on, they kind of enjoyed it. "And we apologize to the community for leaving right before an election that is bound to be contentious and likely now more so. Unfortunately, the Constitution of NixOS does not provide a meaningful recourse to steering committee overreach, and we cannot in good faith continue operating under the current conditions, leaving us no other option. We call on the steering committee to join us in resigning, effective immediately, with no second terms, and allow new members to take their place based on the community vote." So one of their demands is that the steering committee, the elected members, leave, stop being involved in the project, essentially, and no longer be on the board, be on the steering committee. They don't run for re-election in the future or anything like that, right? So they demand that the elected representatives not be the elected representatives. "We call on the community," they continue, "to demand transparency and accountability from the elected steering committee members and checks and balances on their reach." Now, the checks and balances they're asking for is for the moderation team. As if you dig into it, it's not like they're recommending like a judiciary be set up. No. They want the moderation team, an unelected body, to be able to get rid of the steering committee members whenever they want. That's the check and balances and what was it? And transparency and accountability they're asking for. It's crazy. They continue. We call on the steering committee candidates to commit to implementing a constitution reform that will require transparency and accountability from the steering committee, with teams like technical steering and moderation providing a counterbalance. And then they follow this up with this. We're not leaving the community yet. Measures are in place to ensure essential capabilities are maintained. Measures are in place. It sounds nefarious. We hope to see this community grow and prosper, and we believe that it is only possible through transparency, accountability, and trust. Now, like is so often with the case with such activists, when they say transparency, accountability, and trust, they mean other things. They don't actually mean transparency. They don't actually mean accountability or trust. What they mean is they want control over everything. They mean mass control by them. That is their version of accountability. They basically redefine words. The steering committee, this is this is a list of some of the egregious crimes from the steering committee, the elected members. And these are the reasons that the moderators just must absolutely resign. Here we go. The steering committee has involved itself in matters of moderation since its inception. How insidious. Background. The moderation team of NixOS was created before any of the other governing bodies, and was created in such a way that it is an unelected thing, and nobody outside of the moderation team can control the moderation team. The steering committee came later in the history of NixOS. So, okay. The steering committee has repeatedly failed to understand the issues in the community and the requirements of moderation. We have experienced, and I'm just going to read a few of these because it's funny, steering committee members demanding justification for moderation actions post hoc, responding aggressively when explanations have been misunderstood, and going silent with no acknowledgement of further clarification. So in other words, the people who were elected to run NixOS saw that the moderation team was taking moderation actions, meaning banning people and censoring people and deleting entire topics and that sort of thing. And they demanded a justification for that. How dare they? The steering committee attempted to unilaterally remove moderation team members with no justification. So in other words, the elected people that run the board basically for NixOS were trying to get rid of some of the problem moderators that were just censoring people right and left. Okay, that's a problem for the moderation team, right? Steering committee attempted to unilaterally appoint new members to the moderation team. Initially phrased as a suggestion with the stated goal of adding diversity of opinion and tension to the moderation team, apparently trying to address perceptions of political bias by making political appointments. Okay, so in other words, the elected officials of NixOS were like, man, this moderation team is political as all get out. They're committing purges of people and calling them Nazis, right? Crazy political, off the charts, aggressively political. And so they were like, well, let's maybe remove one of the most offensive persons that's done it the most, and then maybe we'll add in another person to counterbalance that, who maybe has a different viewpoint than the nonstop 100% leftist, activist, extremist viewpoint that is the moderation team of NixOS. And the moderation team was not having it. They became irate and pissed. So, of course, mass protest, mass resignation. Now, one of the steering committee members responded here, and I'm going to read a little bit of his response. Quote, the steering committee has tried to work with the moderation team to understand moderation decisions and steer towards more objective moderation behavior, with the goal of making moderation fair and respectable, which feeds back into making moderation work easier. Nonetheless, we have continued to observe moderation not based on the code of conduct of NixOS. but opinions and interpersonal trade-offs, to put it nicely. Furthermore, we have observed an unwillingness to be accountable to the steering committee, the only body they are directly accountable to anyway. More on that in a moment. And then, of course, the steering committee elected member says, I have no plans to resign. Same with at least one other person. And wants to clarify if the moderators are asking for an elected body to be accountable to an unelected body. How crazy and bizarre is that? Which brings me to a bigger, higher level thing. This whole NixOS mass resignation thing is a really fascinating story because it provides a clear case study of how political activists infiltrate organizations, in this case, an open source project. But we've seen it in tech foundations, big tech corporations, and all manner of video game companies and software firms and everything outside of tech as well. And those people who can infiltrate these organizations in this way can cause mass change. It really have a huge impact on the organization, including censorship, changes to leadership, changes to rules, and even contributor purges like we see here with NixOS. And they can do all of this with zero accountability and oversight. It's fascinating to see exactly how this worked here because it's a case study for how organizations, whether it's an open source project or whatever, can avoid these things in the future and how maybe they could try and fix them, because this is across the board hitting everyone in the tech industry and beyond. So what happened here is this. The NixOS project allowed for the creation of a moderation team. And that moderation team did not, and realistically does not, report to anybody. They just created this standalone moderation team. And this moderation team, the people on it, have massive amounts of powers, right? Broad power, the ability to censor and ban any user and any contributor, including elected leaders, founders, everybody of that project for any reason. Because that's really the sort of power you entrust to someone who has moderator capabilities within a project, within a corporation or an organization. That's just how it works. So they created this moderation team. So then the question becomes, well, who appoints new members of the NixOS moderation team, right? Who put those people on that job? Because that's a real critical thing, because everyone who has those sorts of power over a project, the ability to ban and censor and silence people, well, they need to report to someone and they need to be carefully vetted because they can cause mass chaos, right? So who appoints new team members for the moderation team? Well, they're not elected, nor are they appointed by anybody who is elected at all. In fact, the existing moderation team chooses who the new members are, right? And nobody else, nobody in the project, including the founder of the project, who they already kicked out, moderation team did that, has any say over it. Not at all. Not a joke. They have no say whatsoever. So they are in effect, they are a shadow government with inside an individual project. And once they're in place, they have administrative control over source control, forums, chat channels, websites, emails, everything, right? They have administrative control over darn near everything. They are some of the most powerful people within a project with zero accountability. None whatsoever. Any accountability that might be even perceived is barely in existence, right? It's only accountability insofar as the moderation team wants to allow themselves to be held accountable by someone else. They can do whatever they want. And the result of that is exactly what you would expect. Mass bannings of people who are political undesirables by the carefully handpicked by themselves collective of the moderation team. banning of people based on personal relationships, extreme censorship of any criticism of the moderation team. Heck, the NixOS, and this is a real thing. This is crazy how far this has gone. NixOS banned me. So I'm a tech journalist not involved with the NixOS project at all, right? I'm not on their source control account. I don't have an account on their forums. I'm not in their IRC or Matrix channels or whatever chat channels they got. I'm not in those things. And even though I don't use any of these NixOS services and I'm not a member of their project, they preemptively banned me. They banned Lunduke as a precautionary measure, in an attempt to restrict reporting of their activities wherever they actually had the power to do so. Now, they can't stop me from talking elsewhere, but they can stop me from posting things or asking questions to their users and contributors, which they very much do not want to have. And in fact, they go so far as to, whenever anyone posts links to Lunduke Journal stories, they delete them and ban those people. And you can go through, in fact, their moderation log and find a laundry list of people who have been banned from NixOS Discord servers and source control and all sorts of things. And they'll give it very vague reasons for the bannings. They'll say things like, was being inflammatory or things like that. And usually it's just they posted a link to a Lunduke Journal article or story. But that's just one thing. What's far more concerning than banning some random tech journalist is they literally forced out the founder of NixOS. In fact, the Lunduke Journal is literally the only tech news outlet that reported on this at the time when it happened. It's insane. But the founder of NixOS, the moderation team, was so mad at this guy. And again, the moderation team, unelected, they chose themselves. They wrote an abdication letter for the founder of NixOS and forced him to sign it. Now, I don't know how they managed to force him to sign it. That seems asinine to me, but they did. They forced this guy to sign it, and he's out. No, bye-bye, gone. The unelected, unaccountable to anyone moderation team did that. Yeah. Now, what's really, really disturbing about all of this is that this isn't just an issue with NixOS. NixOS is one of so many open source projects, tech foundations, and the like that have this exact same problem, where they have moderation teams or code of conduct committees or something along those lines. Those tend to be the most common one, is code of conduct committees or moderation teams. They usually have the same power, the ability to censor and kick out anyone for whatever reason. And they usually do so entirely in secret. With the moderation team, what you see with NixOS is they will document their censorship of other people only at a cursory level, right? They will hide their true motivations for any singular bit of censorship. Like they'll ban anyone named Lunduke from the NixOS project, but they won't actually say why. And their reasons are political. They don't like my politics. They don't like my reporting on them. So they ban me and they ban anyone who links to me. Okay. Similar things like that throughout all of their banning. They generally hide it behind words like, being inflammatory, argumentative, saying things that are objectionable, right? Being problematic. Things along those lines. So they're lying, right? And being as intentionally obfuscated as possible. And you see this with other projects as well. Fedora, Free Desktop, and so many others have code of conduct committees. Same basic thing, where they can ban anyone they want for any reason they want, and support anyone they want, no matter how difficult they may be. And they don't have to give reasons for that to anybody, right? And what they'll say is that if you ask, well, why did you ban these people over here? Why did you ban this developer from your project? Oh, that's a private code of conduct matter. For everyone's privacy, we're not going to divulge that information. What? Seriously? So you can kick out people en masse. You can censor people en masse, and you don't have to be You don't have to be responsible for it. You don't have to tell people why you did it at all. You're not, in fact, you're not even really accountable to anybody, any individual, nothing within your project. And this is happening throughout. This is happening with OpenSUSE and Fedora and NixOS and Godot and on and on. So many projects, just on and on. It was happening a little bit in Ubuntu. It's all over the place. Even the projects that seem like, okay, well, these aren't too political of projects, they have this problem. And it's everywhere. It's nonstop. It's really, really crazy. And one of the core problems here is that there's no real requirement of these code of conduct committees or these moderation teams to, one, be accountable to anyone. They're not elected positions, which means that the community, if you want to call it that, or just the contributors to a project or the users of a project have no say in who moderates them. Right? But the leaders of the project don't really have that say either. Not in most cases. Very, very few cases does that happen. Usually those moderation teams are self-selected. So once one person is put in place as the moderator, they choose all the rest of the moderators, and then they have their little friend circle of moderative trust. And it never moves beyond that. So it has one particular point of view, one political point of view, and they can enact their political agenda throughout whatever the organization is with impunity. And that's what we see here with NixOS. Now, the interesting thing with this particular story is that 5 of the 7 NixOS moderators have just ejected themselves. Now, my first reaction to that is fantastic. Self-solving problem. If they want to be babies and throw a hissy fit and say, fine, if you won't let me do absolutely everything I want, I'm going home. Well, great. Most of the people didn't want you there anyway. So fantastic. That solved that problem. However, they did make a point. Quote, "We're not leaving the community yet anyway. We will be around. Measures are in place to ensure essential capabilities are maintained." So they have resigned effective immediately, but measures are in place to ensure that all of you better behave yourself, and they can reinstitute themselves anytime they want. There's 2 people that were left from that moderation team that are still on the moderation team. One has to wonder what all measures are in place. But I think we can all use our imagination on that. But just the same, this is interesting to see. So many projects are in a bit of a state of upheaval right now. We've seen this stuff going on like with Ruby and all sorts of things where there's a huge amount of upheaval happening, where the leftist extremist activists are almost making like I don't want to say a Hail Mary, because so many of them have a fair bit of control, like we see with NixOS, but they're throwing these almost tantrums, these unrelenting, ridiculous tantrums where they're demanding even more power than they have, and people are just saying, okay, great, go away. I'm hoping that trend continues of the okay, great, go away, because I tell you what, these tantrums and these crazy demands from moderation teams and codes of conduct committee and the like, they're getting real old. And I would really love to not have to report on any of these things ever again. So if they could knock it off, that'd be fantastic. But anyway, this is all happening. I'll stay on top of it. I don't know where it goes from here. The NixOS project has an election coming up. It remains to be seen what the 2 remaining members of the moderation team at NixOS decide to do. It remains to be seen exactly how the mass of contributors to NixOS decide to respond to all of this in any real capacity. We'll see. We'll see over the coming days. Either way, it's going to be darn interesting. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for allowing this sort of coverage to be possible, because I guarantee you're not going to see it on any other tech news outlet, and the open source outlets aren't going to cover it either, which is absolutely ridiculous. If there is anyone out there doing open source tech news at all and they don't cover this, if you cover Linux and you don't cover this, are you really covering Linux? I would posit no. So if anyone wants to cover this, feel free. Just steal the screenshots I posted and then talk about those. You don't have to agree with me, but you have to cover this. The stuff that's happening here is fairly extreme and has a dramatic impact on a huge number of contributors, a huge number of users, and a very influential Linux operating system. So what are they doing? But thank you, everyone at the Lunduke Journal who subscribes to the Lunduke Journal, for making this possible, completely free from the influence of big tech. I couldn't do it without you. Go to lunduke.com. You can listen and watch and read and interact with me for free in all of those places that are linked to on lunduke.com. And of course, you can subscribe and get some really fun perks in the process. You can grab a lifetime subscription like all these crazy cats over here. Now, that's a very small collection of the lifetime subscribers. That's the lifetime subscriber amazing wall of awesomeness. I just named it that just now. And why? And I don't put anyone's name up there unless they specifically ask for their name to be put up there. I've got a couple emails. I got to add some more to it. And honestly, probably sometime this week, I'm probably have to come up with a second screen. But if you want to be on there, whether your real name, an anonymous name, whatever, email me. There's more information about that up at lunduke.com. In fact, if you go to lunduke.com and you scroll down to the bottom, there's a little perks for subscribers link. If you click on that link, it has all the details on how you get all the various perks and ebooks and everything else. It's just fantastic. And also, you'll notice on lunduke.com, there is a Become a Tech Whistleblower link. Click that link. Become a tech whistleblower. Whether you work at a big tech company, on an open source project, you see something weird and hanky, whatever it is, get a hold of the Lunduke Journal. Let's get that out there, because nobody else within open source and tech news is going to cover it. If it's actually interesting in news, the ZDNet and Verge ain't going to cover it. So get a hold of the Lunduke Journal and let's get that information out there. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes, across this inner tube of ours, I do declare, end broadcast.